Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Path to Recovery podcast. Episode 29 today. Here's a big one. How can we add God to our healing? You knew this was coming, but before I go any further, I just want you to like and subscribe to this podcast, but also please share this with someone you know that might be struggling during their walk. It could be just what they need to hear to get them to get started on their recovery. So please like, subscribe, share it, send it out to the masses. So, walking a path to recovery requires us to seek a higher power other than ourselves to assist us in our recovery. It's required because we can't really fix what is broken by using the same thing that broke us in the first place. Our dysfunctional brain is not the answer to our dysfunction. An outside source is required. It could be something like a specialist, a psychotherapist, maybe a priest or a rabbi, or there's many other possibilities. But like the 12-step program and all other recovery programs, we need to reconnect with God or that higher power. So hang with me. This is going to get a little different than what you may have heard of in your past. Just roll with me on this and we'll put it all together. So I say reconnect with God because it is my belief that we're all children of God, regardless of how dark we've gotten, what our words or actions show to others, and we're forever directly connected as the light of God, whether you know it or not. Let me give you a little concept to chew on. At one time, we were just floating around in the bliss of God and having a grand old time being the light of God until we had this really interesting notion that we could be separate from God. Once we had that notion or that thought of being separate from God, as creators, we seem to have created this thin veil, sort of like a sheet of saran wrap, that stretchy plastic wrap that you use to wrap food with. And we imagined it between us and God, and it seemed to have separated us. Now, I use the term seem to let you know that we've never really separated from God, but that we sort of believed we did in that crazy moment. What's more important is that we also began to behave like we separated. Now, once the thought was ingested, we then manifested this guilt thing associated with separating from God. And immediately, bam! This big bang occurred, and we became these light particles that appeared to spread out into the veil that again seemed to bring us further away from God. That veil that we're talking about is kind of more known as the universe. So this dream began to take shape as trillions and trillions of stars and planets and particles started forming. Somewhere along the line, we continued to doubt our divinity and our holiness, and we created more fear and guilt. It was in this very moment that we could have actually reversed this whole false existence if we would have simply laughed it off or just shook our light-being heads and said, "That's silly. We can only be the light of God and never separate from it." But the thought became a thing, and that thing became fear. And then that fear brought guilt and guilt and shame created regret, and so on. The creation of Earth and the ego began. See, the ego is that little voice in your head that constantly changes the truth into a false reality of sorts by convincing you that you're not worthy, or you're less than enough, or that you're flawed in any way, or that everything around you is to blame for your dysfunction and you will never go back to God. It's that driving force behind our stumbles and our struggles, that pain and anguish. It's the mask that we put on instead of dealing or coping with our issues head on. It's kind of like using drugs or alcohol, or being in a codependent relationship, or maybe having a food disorder, or the use of social media as our truth finder. It's the excuses we make when anything happens to bring us to an uncomfortable emotional state. It's the poor me or the martyr syndrome. It's that, I should have done this instead of I could have done this. Now, using I should kind of focuses blame on ourselves, where using I could allows us to recognize we're always the chooser of our outcomes. I should have done something means that we're doubting ourselves and we're blaming ourselves. Whereas if we would have just said something like, I could have done something, it means to us that we could have chosen a different way. We just decided to choose one way. It means we have the power. Now, the ego isn't real. It's just kind of like the strong arm of this illusion that we've created by imagining what it would be like without God. It's like having those two tiny figures on your shoulder telling you what to do. One is an angel and the other one is a devil. So the devil is what we're calling the egoic brain that guides us down the path away from God and our righteous thoughts and actions, keeping us in the blame or shame game, telling us that we can't do things and doubting ourselves, keeping us from healing by telling us to just have one more fix, one more drink, or whatever it is. So now that you're kind of bedazzled with all of that concept, let's get focused on the topic. How can we add God in our healing process? So regardless of how you learned about God, or how you lost your connection with God, or maybe you don't even believe there is a God, regardless of any of that, we need to think about this as merely a resource of higher power that is essentially designed to assist us in our healing ways. You can call it the Creator, you can call it Allah, Buddha, heck, you can even call it Charlie. It doesn't really matter. The concept is you're looking outside of yourself. It can also be maybe that special friend you can actually trust, or maybe a family member, unless they happen to be the source of your uncomfortable moments. It could be a therapist, a coworker, maybe it's a boss or a neighbor, a priest or rabbi, or anyone that can assist you through this. Use whatever you need in order to get to the point of healing, which again, we can't fix what is broken if we try to use the broken thing to fix it. Let me put this in clearer terms and not use such metaphors, okay? We've chosen actions that got us to where we are today by using a broken belief system and a broken mindset. That same mindset or belief system is not a healthy one. So why would we try to get healthy using the same unhealthy mindset or belief system? We need something other than ourselves. I have another podcast to help you understand the concept of our belief system called What Are My Beliefs? Which this podcast clearly defines what a belief system is and how the mindset is driven from our beliefs. But anyhow, how do we heal with God or that special higher power? What is it that can bring us to a healing like no other time in our lives? Well, guys, it all starts with the heart. Our healing begins only when we stop using our brain for solutions and start using our hearts for answers. This is why God, or your higher power, can be that catalyst for your healing. You see, we can fool ourselves into thinking we're heading down the right path, but if we're not honest with ourselves and truly want to heal, we can't make the changes necessary to bring on healing. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a short story about someone I knew who played this game of deceiving others by deceiving themselves while they were trying to use their dysfunctional brain during their healing. This is not going to be a soft and fluffy story, so I want you to hang tight. So somewhere around 12 years ago, maybe like 2008 or so, I knew this couple who had two daughters. One daughter was 17, the other one was about 12. The oldest was considered like the popular girl in school and had her act together, and she was just this wonderful person and a beautiful, caring soul. The youngest daughter just simply idolized her big sister. So whenever she could, she'd ask her big sister to do something and play with her and all of that. So they had a great relationship. This whole family was churchgoers and they believed in God. For some reason, the oldest sister started hanging out with this guy who, if you looked at him, you'd be wondering why they were hanging out. He was more of the oddball at school. He wasn't really popular and kind of a recluse. But they were just friends, or so they let everyone think. Then, within around 6 months or so, this kind-hearted girl started to behave in ways that made everyone around her wonder what was going on. She would yell at her parents and curse her friends, and slowly stopped hanging around with that crowd. She would even treat her kid sister badly, and that just tore her mom apart, as her younger sister looked up to her so much. Her mom started telling everyone about how things are coming up missing at the home, and cash is missing, and how her daughter has become this alien and just plain mean. Everyone was telling her that her daughter must be into drugs because of that dude she's hanging out with. Her mom struggled to see it, as any mom or dad would. Soon enough, in her senior year, I believe it was, she basically stopped going to school. Now, this was an A student. This girl had college in line, had great promise, had great things coming to her. She just stopped going and barely came home. Now, this story probably is sounding familiar to probably all of you. So about 3 months away from graduation, there was a difficult life-altering change that happened to this girl. She and her boyfriend were caught with drugs. Selling, using, you name it, everything. They were doing it, they were distributing it, everything. They actually found them together at his apartment, obliterated and passed out on the floor, with all sorts of illegal paraphernalia all around the house. Yes, the police did get involved. Through insanely large efforts from her family and friends, she was not sent to jail, but her boyfriend was. Days later, she didn't have much choice, and she was sent to a detox recovery program. And she was expressing how badly she wanted to get clean. I mean, when she'd call her mom and dad, she'd be crying on the phone for hours, telling everyone that she was going to get her act together. She would say all the right things to ease everyone's mind, except her own. After her detox program finished, she began living in a halfway house. Her family wasn't able to go see her due to the fact that she had enough pressures trying to rebuild any sort of life, and seeing her family could have added tons of guilt and shame, which she didn't really need to experience at that point in time. Since me and my friend weren't family, we were actually authorized to stop by the halfway house to check in on her once a week or so. She had been there for almost, 2 weeks, and we decided that we wanted to go visit her for the first time. We weren't part of her issues, so we were allowed to go visit. When we arrived, the lady running the place said that she had already left that morning on her own without any of her possessions. We were blown away at how easily that could have happened, but that was a moot point. We then called her mom and dad and some of her friends to see if she had headed there. We had the police looking for her, and we contacted everyone we knew to contact. We did some research and eventually found that her boyfriend, for some reason, was released on bail, and there was obviously nothing we could do about it. It just doesn't make sense sometimes, but things have to happen. This was one situation that ended as bad as it could possibly end. Through all the searching and everything, sadly, the next day, both she and the boyfriend were both found dead in his new apartment. No problems were solved, no healing was done. There wasn't a chance at that time. Now, I know this is an ugly story. I bet we've all heard something like this, or have been involved in something like this. The point I was getting at was that this girl, once she was busted and somewhat coherent after detox, she was telling everybody exactly what they wanted to hear in order for her to conceal the pain and the problem and to get back to her drugs and that lifestyle that she was hiding in. She said she wanted to heal, but she probably had no idea how to heal at that time, or even how to reach out and ask for help. But that's hard to say since she wasn't able to communicate with anyone truthfully to find the real problems behind it all. There was no way that she was going to be able to start healing while she still used the same brain that created the problem. Yes, her brain was being altered by the use of drugs, but the pain she was hiding from before she started using needed to be addressed. Not the drug problem. It was all of this pain that she apparently had that she believed deeply she needed drugs to hide from. So how does this story show us that we need God in our healing? You guys can easily see that God or some other higher power was definitely needed way before she got busted, and preferably before she started using. The problem wasn't the drugs. It was that she was using the drugs to mask something painful within her being. To bring God into the core of the pain, then healing from that pain requires something beyond our dysfunctional brain and our human self. You can see that once she was in such a dark place, it could have taken years possibly for her to remove herself from all of it. Hard addictions like this are not cured in days or weeks. Including God in all aspects of the healing is necessary so that we can dismiss our desires to use that dysfunctional brain that got us into this mess in the first place. God doesn't work with our brains. It works from our hearts. Alleviating the brain and using the heart to heal is the only way to truly receive healing. And being that God is love, peace, joy, and abundance, we'll begin the healing from destructive behaviors because our behaviors come from our destructive thoughts, which come from our destructive beliefs. Change our beliefs to change our thoughts, and then our actions and everything in between will follow. Our beliefs are rooted in our hearts, not in our minds. You can see the pain that she and her family had to experience while not having any answers during her rehabilitation. The emotional struggles for everyone had to have been off the charts. To have God be your source in coping with emotions is critical, no matter how big or small the issue may be. When you bring God into your healing, your heart shows you the way. When you see the way, you see the light of God. To be that connected to God will provide coping of emotions beyond your human brain, because you won't see issues the same harsh way. you'll have clarity from your heart. What I found out later was that during the hardest of times, neither the girl nor her family went to God for help. There were many offers given, so it was basically a choice made by everyone. A choice that is most difficult to make when going through those dark days. However, the family did return to God after she passed away. It was unfortunately too late for her, but her family has been able to reconnect with God and its healing powers and have healed through it. It isn't time that heals all wounds, folks. It's our ability to cope and adjust and heal from these emotional traumas. See, the healing of her addiction needed to take place for everyone involved way before she became a drug user. Her parents needed to heal. Her sister needed to heal. Her friends needed to heal. All right, so back to the original question. How do we add God to our healing? Here are some ways you can consider. The first one, connecting with God, is a you and God thing. What I'm trying to express here, folks, is simple. One-on-one experience. That's what this is. You and God. It doesn't require anyone else to be there unless you need to learn how to communicate with God by experiencing examples from others. It also doesn't require certain rituals or processes. It's going to take shape as you need it to, not as some gathering does it or some online guru tells you. It'll be a custom connection that you make yourself. It's one-on-one, you and God. Next thing is don't wait. Reconnecting with God or connecting for the first time needs to happen sooner rather than later. As the story showed you, God needed to be involved before the addiction started. So the sooner you connect, the sooner you can heal. Next piece is seek someone that knows God. There are many places and people who can start you on your path. What you want to find is someone who directs you to connecting directly with God, not kind of sorta to God. We don't need a middleman, so to speak. It's not about the place. It's not about the gathering. It's not about dressing up. We need to go to the source, God, not a resource. But you got to start somewhere. So if you need a middleman, then do it by all means. But your goal is to ultimately get to you and God alone. Next part is just find a place of quiet. Look, this part of healing requires you to be able to find quiet in your mind in order to seek your heart. That in itself can be the hardest thing to do as you begin your healing. Quieting the mind is hard enough when you don't have any major addictions like drugs or alcohol. Heck, I know many people who have told me they can't seem to quiet their minds to meditate. I'm here to tell you, anyone can. Anyone. To be with family may not be the best place to find a quiet place. You may feel added pressure or guilt by being with them while you try to heal. I went through that exact same thing. I needed to heal away from everybody and everything I've done before. I actually took 24 weeks of not being with friends, family, work. I got away from everything that caused me stress so that I could begin the healing process. It's often the case that family is part of the issues that we're trying to heal from anyway. Remember, folks, this process is about you and God, not you, God, and others. At least not yet. We've got to fix us first before we can reach out for others. So make sure you can find a quiet place for you and God to hang out. Next part is learn to quiet your mind. Finding a place of quiet is only as good as your ability to quiet your mind. A lot of people that are insanely good at meditating can do it in the middle of rush hour traffic. They can do it in the middle of a movie, at the theater where there's tons of music, but they've developed the skill over time. Learning to meditate is critical to healing and is incredibly effective in communing with God. Now, since there are thousands or millions of people who think they know what's best for you, you might want to research what it is they're presenting before you jump on their bandwagon of meditation. Everyone is different, so things like background music may upset some people, whereas it may be perfect for others. So if someone says the best way to meditate is with sound, hey, yeah, it might be good, but it might not be for you. So assess it, find some situations, find some techniques, focus on one technique at a time, and then give it time. In other words, if you feel guided or directed to one type of meditation, then just focus on that. Don't try to do 3, 4, 5 different meditations. Just focus on one. If it doesn't work the first time, give it 3 chances before you jump off to another technique. Don't bail. This is not a drug. This is not oh, that didn't work, let me get a different drug. This is, let me give it a legitimate shot. And if it doesn't work after 3 tries, then I'll switch. Don't forget, guys, it isn't the technique that's the issue. It's your ability to connect with the technique. So give it a good try before trying something else. Now, I've taught many people to simply use a candle and try focusing on the flame, even for just 2 seconds. If you can do 2 seconds, then you can try 5. And if you can do 5 seconds, then you can try 10 seconds, and so on. So I'm going to be adding another podcast on a simple candle meditation process so you can listen to my voice as you practice your meditation. I'm going to call it the art of meditation, and it's going to involve a candle. So if you need assistance with that, if you want to try it out as a technique, beautiful. If not, look for something that makes sense to you. Okay? Now, once you find a meditation that works, the next process is to start a conversation with God. Connecting with God isn't ritualized, or it isn't in a building. Although those are good starts, connecting with God can be as simple as talking to God as if it's your best friend, because it will be. I give credit to this process from a dear friend of mine who changed my way of communing with God to a deeper level by just being me and talking to God. So I treat God as just my best friend, and every day I start the process. So I do something like this. I just start by saying hello. Then I add something like gratitude right out of the gate. Something like, thank you, God, for this opportunity to connect with you. Or how about, you know what, I'm very grateful for this chance to reconnect. Then just imagine God being that BFF. Tell God about your day. Here's an example of the way I kind of approach every conversation with God. Not everyone, but a lot of my conversations. It's going to sound kind of funky, but this is it. Dude, what a cool day. Thank you for that last lesson today and showing me how to see it from your eyes, not mine. Oh, and how about that crazy driver at the roundabout? I recognized my struggle with it and saw clearly where I needed to heal from my childhood on that one. Excellent assist, Father. I actually talk to God as if we've been besties for all my life, and we have. Then after you do your kind of intro, then you can express your struggles and your delights. It's important to always be grateful for the good things of the day, not just focusing on the negative. This aspect is part of knowing balance. Balance is sharing everything, not just the uglies. Yeah, talk about the uglies, get them over and done with. But make sure you throw in, wow, this was cool today. I felt you today. I felt happy today. I felt excited, elated. I was jumping for joy today. Thank you for that. Take notes, as the more you commune with God, the less negatives are going to arise and the more positives will be talked about. It is just that natural, guys. When you find you are good with what has been shared with God, be grateful. Thank you, God, for your guiding me today and every day. Thank you for expressing the vision of yours, not mine. Letting me see things through your eyes, not my blinded, blocked human eyes. End with gratitude. Next part is to just focus on one topic to try and heal from. Now, we all know we have many topics to heal from just about every day. Don't get yourself overwhelmed by trying to heal them all at once. You can easily get disheartened by your views of failing to conquer all of your issues in a day. So don't bother. Just focus on one. Pace, peace, and patience will give you the greatest success. Make sure that one thing per day gets cleared. So clearing isn't just telling God about it. That's part of it. It's also telling God how it came about. Then trying to see the situation through God's eyes. Or, as I've stated for years in another podcast, see the situation through the eyes of a fly on the wall. Which, if you can do that, you can then see all of the actions taken by all parties involved, and you can better see where your missteps were so that you can heal those. Then try to find an alternate solution to whatever those missteps were. So that if it comes up again, you can react to it differently and in a more healthier manner. And then give thanks. Be thankful for just the process you started. Be thankful for the fact that you are taking steps in the right direction. Be thankful that you are still here and fighting the good fight. Be thankful for everything that has happened in the day. Not for being punished or hit or getting high. Be thankful that you're alive to talk about it. Be thankful that you've experienced it and know where the change needs to come. Now, the next part is going to be called forgiveness, practicing forgiveness. I just want you to know, folks, this part, forgiveness, starts with you. We're not here to heal others just yet. We need to heal ourselves first. So here's an example of me forgiving myself. Again, I do things a little different than most, but that's okay. You'll catch on. God, I saw that lesson today. You know, the one about me passing judgment on that person begging for cash at the store. I recognized that I immediately assumed that they were going to take my money and probably go buy a bottle of something to drown their sorrows. Yet, I know nothing of their story and what they're all about. I only know that I'm your child and that I share the light in me with all others, not just the few that look like they deserve it. Forgive me, Father, as I take this lesson and learn to walk past it the next time and to see that person through your eyes, not mine. May this reaction change within me so my future moments are filled with your guidance and love. So the idea behind forgiveness is to correct a pattern of thought with a pattern of feeling. Thought patterns come from the brain. Feeling patterns come from the heart and are directed by God. So the last piece, just begin and end every day with gratitude. You know, I've been talking about gratitude, giving thanks, being grateful. Begin your day with gratitude. You know, whether it was a great sleep or not, whether it was a great day or a hard day. Be thankful for all lessons provided, the ones you've learned or the ones that you're still working on. We're just not going forward, folks. We're growing forward. Find your way of giving thanks to God. And while you're at it, thank yourself for your steps to recovery. You are one step closer. Folks, thank you very much for listening. This is longer than usual podcast, but there's a lot of depth that needed to come out of this one. I am grateful for your presence. I'm grateful for your desire to listen. I'm grateful for your desire to heal and your desire to reconnect with God or to connect with God for the first time. I appreciate you. I love you. I give thanks to you, and I hope we can walk each other down this path to recovery. Thank you very much. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next time.